Hello, hello, everybody. Good morning. It's still good morning here in the East Coast. I'm Ardis Kadiu, CEO of Element451, and with me today is Erin.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Ardis. How are you doing today?
Doing great. I forgot to say that this is In Your Element with Ardis and Erin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a key message we need to get across each time.
This is our Wednesday news episode, and we have a couple of interesting articles to share with you today. But one of the things that we wanted to mention is this week is HBCU week, and there's a lot of great articles and news out there, and we're certainly posting a lot of things out there. But just wanted to recognize that. And one of the topics that we're going to talk about today, it has nothing to do with HBCU specifically, but Erin will get into it. We're going to talk about how schools are doing now that we are about 1 month into their semester. For a lot of you, or for a lot of our schools, there's what's called the census date, and that census date is essentially when a lot of schools have had all of their students starting for the semester, and that's when they record how many, and they lock down those numbers of how many students they have in the semester. So now we're seeing the actual application numbers and the actual enrollment numbers being reported from different schools. And what we're seeing, and some of the articles that we're going to touch on, are going to talk about this what's called MELT, summer MELT. And the idea here there is that those students who say they're coming and they deposited, they don't show up in campus, they don't show up in that first day. So now that is the MELT that we're talking about. And it's certainly one of those topics that we at Element have covered a number of times before. We've written articles about it. We have a lot of tools and technology in the platform that is built specifically to combat, summer melt and keep students engaged. However, let's start with a melt article. So NPR had this article, College Admissions Meltdown, essentially, and what they're talking about is that this year we are seeing a huge increase in summer melt. The averages are around 20%, with some schools even in the 30s as well, 30s or even 40s. And they go into describe some of the nuances of what's contributing to the summer melt. So one of those, and Erin, jump in at any time
Sure.
if I haven't given enough context here, but I figured out just run with it for a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. So as you mentioned, we've written about college melt before, and it's been something that researchers have looked into. Why does this melt happen? And we thought we had figured it out. Some of the things are, it's really complicated to figure out all of the pieces of information, forms you need to complete and submit before school starts. That's one aspect. But now we have other factors that are playing. Pandemic, of course, has kind of thrown numbers off, and students have been applying to many more schools. So that has thrown things off. That's not necessarily new. What's kind of new is that used to be that once a student secured their place and they put down their deposit, then in the article, if you listen to it, talks about this. I think there's a quote from the school, University of Illinois, that those enrollment directors kind of sit back after May 1st and be like, okay, I'm all set. I've got this number of students coming, and just, not that there's ever really a break in higher ed, but could at least have a little bit more peace of mind. And now, because students are putting down deposits at multiple schools, it's just there's not that certainty there anymore that what your model is going to show you is what's going to actually come to
Right.
pass in September.
Right.
Yeah.
So the two factors, that Erin is talking about is this idea of, and one of those is this idea that at May 1st. So May 1st is a very special date when students are depositing, and you know exactly who is committed to the school. And what's changed there is that schools nationally, as part of that, NACAC and some of the other bylaws, about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, uh, there was a big controversy around, schools should be able to market and to recruit students after May 1st. So that was something that was led by the DOJ with NACAC. So they had to change their bylaws. So before that, schools could not send emails or could not market to a student after May 1st because they already had committed to another school. Well, now that's thrown out the window. So those rules no longer apply. And schools, even after they have committed, they're going back to a student and saying, hey, if I give you more financial aid, if I give you more X, if I give you more Y, or have your circumstances changed, come to our school. So they're now able to do that. We did not have any models for that before. So, now we're seeing the effect of that school's marketing. And the second one that Erin was talking about was this idea that students are applying to more schools. This year, there is an increase of 20%. So an average from 5 schools that a student was applying to 6. That's the average. But some students are applying to over 20 or 30 schools. And the reason for that is because it's become so much easier to apply to these schools. We know that the Common App, with about 900 plus institutions in there, it's very easy to do that. We know that going test optional makes it a lot easier to apply. The elimination of a lot of the essays and a bunch of other things makes it a lot easier to apply. So what's happening is that schools are now, it's the same amount of students, if not less, but they're applying, they have more applications to more schools. So schools are seeing inflated numbers of applications. Hence, those students are making, obviously they're going to get a lot more melt and they're going to get a lot less students. The other part is that students are, depositing to more schools. And that's an interesting trend. It's like you're essentially putting money down and you're saying, oh, I'm coming to your school, hold my spot. And we knew that was your final word, back a few years ago, no longer today. And I think that's related to the ability for competitor schools to go in and poach that student as well.
For sure. So I think with this, well, so what do we do? What do schools do?
Yeah, well, so traditionally, you're able to predict what your class is going to be like, right? So you're able to predict based on your historical data. You're going to say that, okay, based on how much financial aid I gave, or based on how much, what the factors were of that student making a commitment, I'm going to have this many students come in the fall. So you had your models built in. And those models were around how much aid you gave, what kind of students you're enrolling. Basically, a lot of that had to do with aid. And once the student has been admitted, it has to do a lot with the financial package. Well, those models are out the window, right? So you had to do with how engaged that student was and kind of trying to get that student kind of to move through that summer melt. Those models are thrown out the window because of all these changes that we're talking about, right? So how does somebody predict now how they're going to get, how many students they're going to get in the door?
Yeah, it's kind of a conundrum. So one thing that I know from the digital marketing aspect of higher ed recruiting, and we look at intent. We look at what kind of signals are we getting from things that students are doing right now. So
Yes.
I wonder, Ardis, if you see that. I know Element, our platform, that's what we're all about, is capturing those signals and
Yes.
putting them to the schools. So how do you see that playing more of a role in, or do you see it playing more of a role in how schools are going to have a clear picture? Their crystal ball is like super cloudy right now? How do we give a little bit of clarity to what they can expect?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that, so there's another article which talks about, well, algorithms and the AI are used to predictive modeling in terms of describing how schools are building these models to provide, students, or to predict who's going to enroll and who's going to, how much, uh, like what their class is going to look like. And there's a lot of factors in there, right? We talked about the financial factor, and this article is all about, well, you should not determine how much money you give to a student based on their likeliness to come to your school. Well, at the end of the day, schools have a certain pool of money that they, based on their financial aid that they have to give out, or they can give out, and they're trying to distribute that um, to as many students as possible. And a lot of that is driven by the need based, by your EFC, and by a lot of the other factors. A lot of schools are moving towards need blind admissions as well. But ultimately, they have these models that are being built. And what this article is saying is that, the models are determining, maybe I should give Erin $5,000 because I know that if I give her, 6 or 7, she's still likely to come to our school. So I can take that $2,000 and give it to Ardis, or give it to somebody else who is going to put them over the line and actually make them come to our school. So that's what the models are doing, and that's essentially what this article is kind of going against, is saying that algorithms are bad, we should not use them. Or if you look at it the other way, it's saying that the way that they're being used right now might not be as, if I guess it might not help the right types of students in getting into those schools, and they might not be getting the right treatment because of the algorithm is saying that student is going to come anyway, even though they need more money. Don't give it to them, give it to somebody else who is on the verge of getting that. Completely understand there. And that's why one of the things that we're trying to do with Element is moving away from kind of this idea of fit modeling, and this idea that, hey, you have this is what you look like, this is your demographics, this is kind of everything, and then we're going to attach that prediction to you based on that data. We're moving away from that because, as we see, the input on that data is no longer accurate, right? Even though the student applied to you and they got accepted, if they have not engaged with your school, why would you give that student $10,000 or $5,000 or $3,000 at all? Like, why can't you just give that to somebody else who we know has engaged with you, and kind of looking at their activity is more likely to come to your school? So it's like saying, I'm going to, even though you're, you don't interact with my brand at all, you have applied to it, you applied for the catalog once, and you're in my mailing list, but you've never opened my emails, you never made another purchase, but I still keep sending you coupons, even though I have a very limited inventory. And once I send you that coupon, I can't give it to somebody else, right? So I can't kind of move that aid around. So that's, what we believe, should move away from that and move more towards that behavioral approach, where it's all about the interactions with the student. There are certain vendors that are doing something similar, where they're using surveying and engagement, and we've actually do that as part of the Element. It's baked into the Element platform with our microsites and the survey, admitted student surveys. So essentially, you're kind of pinging that student all the time, and you're kind of getting their feedback. And you're looking to see, have they visited your website? Have they opened you, engaged with you? And essentially, that's a better indicator if they're coming to your school or not than how much money do you have to predict you have to give to that student to come to your school. So taking the money out and then leaving the financial need specifically based on your um, financial model to that student or their need is a little bit different. So focusing on engagement and behavior is much, much more predictive now, given that this input data from the fit models are changing drastically.
Right. Yeah, I can imagine just in the, thinking about the depositing aspect so that,
Yep.
like that May 1st, that was the deadline. Okay, I've captured all the information I need about the student. I'm good to go. This is my sign. They're going to probably be here. But with Element, after May 1st, you still need to be picking up those signals. Okay, are they opening? We sent a bunch of emails about orientation. Are they logging into their admitted student portal? Those would help to understand, okay, is this deposit for real? Or was it just to like a just in case want to save my spot as a plan B or C, or with students applying to 20 colleges, it's like plan T or something.
we can make a lot of assumptions on kind of the behavior for the student, on kind of their intent, right? You mentioned intent before, but that intent needs to have some kind of actions behind it to kind of move you towards that. So with that being said, I guess as a data nerd, as as an engineer, as somebody who loves algorithms are not intrinsically bad or good, or the use of them bad or good. It's just that there can be a lot of bias in the algorithms, or in the way these models are built based on your historical data. And if your historical data is not good, then this longevity, like, it's not good, then you're going to bring that bias with you later. So as I look at it, this is not a problem of algorithms. Algorithms are going to rule the world, right? So they're here to stay. Every single day, your life is run by algorithms, and they're here to stay. It's helping everybody. It's helping the admissions offices to make better, faster decisions. It's helping everybody. But what we need to be good at is looking at, what are we feeding those algorithms, and also looking at adopting and changing based on how the environment is changing with us.
Absolutely. And, this particular piece focused a lot of the it was very critical of the agencies that kind of help schools do this enrollment analytics. And do you see, I know we have a course running for enrollment managers about data analytics, and that aspect of, bringing that knowledge more in-house. I can see where, when you hire a vendor to do something and it's kind of out of your wheelhouse, you're putting a lot of faith in them that they're going to guide you on the right path. And sometimes they don't. So it seems like that do you see that as being a skill set that colleges need to be investing in their staff to understand using algorithms in a responsible, ethical way?
Yeah, that's Erin. I love it that you brought it to that, because that's the primary driver, right? So when you don't have to do everything yourself, but when you know what goes into it, then you can influence how something works, or how you engage with a vendor. So yes, having that knowledge in-house on how, what are the factors that go into a lot of this, and everything else, and how it's actually done. Like, that was the driver for us putting that course together, right? We're going to need to get more data driven, and in order to get data driven, we need to not only implement tools, but also gain the knowledge of our own data internally. And that's kind of what that course is doing. It's not specific to any specific tools, per se, but it's about the enrollment analytics practice. I think JC Bonilla, he's really adamant about the practice of enrollment analytics and kind of putting that at the core.
Right.
Well, we've gone really long on this one, and we only had 2 articles to cover, and we talked a lot. So hopefully this was useful for some of you. We will be back on Monday, and we will talk all about video, personal video engagement as well, and how that fits into Element, and show you a couple of cool new integrations and features that we have in there, and how you can take that to the next level if you're not doing it already. Erin, any last words?
I think that's it. I think that was a good, we covered a lot, and more to talk about next week.
Well, thanks everybody. We will see you on Monday. Bye.
Take care. Bye.